Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining us again today. Well, we've got a pistol video for you here, and we've had some requests to cover more pistol options that are chambered in .22 long rifles. So with that in mind, today we're taking a look at the TX22 by Taurus. Over the last few years, Taurus has continued to impress with increasingly higher quality firearms that are still budget friendly. The TX22 is no exception. Does a high-capacity .22 long rifle pistol make sense as a carry gun? Well, we're going to try to find out in just a minute. All right, once again, welcome back. Thanks for being with us. If you're new to the channel, or if you've been watching our videos and just have not had a chance to do so, and you like our content, please consider subscribing. You can find that little subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner of your screen there, or you can scroll down below the video if you're on a mobile device, and you can hit the subscribe button that way. It's a simple thing that helps us out a lot, and we really appreciate it. So let's get to it. Taurus TX22. When this pistol came out, I didn't look at it right away, and I usually don't. The first time a pistol lands, I usually try to give it a little bit of time. Like anything else, it's like a new car. You never know when there's going to be bugs or issues that need to be worked out right away. So I try to make my way around to things after a while, unless it's just a super high demand. And, the Taurus interested me mainly because of its capacity, which we'll get to in greater detail in a minute. But we're talking about a 16+1 capacity .22 long rifle pistol. Now, we always start off with a little comparison for size. And I think it's important that you do have a look at this, because when I think of a .22 for carry, personally I think of a smaller firearm. And this is a pretty good sized firearm. We've got up against a Glock 19. Now, as you can see, very, very, very similar in overall profile and size to the Glock 19. They're not exact. And of course, this comparison is only to give you an idea of what it's going to be like to carry that weapon, as far as size, what it's going to feel like in the holster. But we're talking about a firearm that, although is going to be lighter, because obviously the ammunition is going to be lighter for .22 than versus a Glock 19, which is 9mm, it's still going to be a pretty good sized weapon to carry. That's always good to keep in mind. We'll come back to some of the more related specifics about that a little bit later, but that is your basic size comparison. All right, we're going to jump right into the features here, but before we do, we want to take a moment to thank our friends over at Don's Weaponry for providing us this beautiful example of the TX22 by Taurus for our tabletop review today. Don's Weaponry is a huge supporter of firearm safety and education, and we cannot thank them enough for their support. So, kind of in no particular order, I kind of like to go from the top down when I talk about features. Let's start up here with the sights. You can see it's a white dot setup. You've got a fixed front sight here, and then your rear sight is adjustable, which is kind of nice. If I can get fiber optic sights or night sights, I like those. But a white dot sight's not bad. It shows up really well. It's works perfectly good, and it's adjustable, which is great. You can see you've got your serrations on the slide here. Just a small area on the front and back, but I'll drop the magazine here and let you see that we are clear. Okay, you can see there's nothing in the chamber there. It's very easy to manipulate the slide, so don't really need a lot of this in the first place. You might have noticed when I had this open that your ejection port is just on the side of the slide there. You may notice on a lot of firearms, you're used to seeing it on the side and on the top, like on the Glock here that we did our size comparison with. You can see it goes all the way around. And that's just interesting design change there. You definitely know which way the brass is going to be coming out. Looking at the front here, you may have noticed there is a seam right here if you look really closely between these two parts. And that's because this will come off, and you have a threaded barrel adapter that does come with it, which is kind of nice. So if you have a .22 suppressor, you plan on getting one, you want to practice, and keep a ear protection to a maximum, you can utilize this with your suppressor, and then it'll make shooting a lot more pleasant. So it's nice that they give you that. It's very, very, I always like it when they give you exactly what you need to make it suppressor ready. So I showed you the slide release here. It is just on the left-hand side. You can see there's nothing on the other side. This one does have a manual safety. It, however, is ambidextrous. You can see you have that on both sides there. So lefties, they were thinking about you to some degree. If you are the type of individual that likes to put lights, lasers on your firearm, you do have a nice Picatinny rail here that you can utilize for doing that. And then this is your magazine release. I don't want to make a big deal out of this, but this is the one design feature I don't really like, just because when I bring my thumb over here and I go to mash on this, because it's right here where this part of the trigger guard comes in and it's beveled, if you don't hit it just right, if your pressure is right here, if you got too much pressure on this part of the guard and not up high, the magazine's not going to come out. So you got to make sure you get your thumb kind of on top of it there. And well, with very little practice, you know, you can get right to it. So as I said, it's not a big deal. It's just, to me, I don't like that design so much. The grip, you've got pretty good. It's not a harsh texture, but it's really well covered around the entire grip. It's extremely comfortable. You do have a slight groove, and you have a single bump here between where your first and your second finger would go in here. So it's a very positive grip. At no point do you feel like that you're having to fumble to get your hand in a good place, whether it's a two-handed grip or whether it's a one-handed grip. It's a very pleasant experience. The trigger guard is really large. You know, I showed you a moment ago, we were comparing the Glock, and it's every bit as big and probably a little bit bigger because it's thinner. So the actual space inside is a little bit bigger. I like a larger trigger guard just because I don't like to have to hunt and peck to get my finger on the trigger. If I'm from a safe position and I go to the trigger, I like to be able to just drop right in there. It does have a nice trigger for a 22, and we'll talk about that more in the range section, but I was pretty impressed with the trigger on this firearm. And you know, as far as the weight, it's a very light handgun, and that's always a positive. Now I want to show you one thing here. Part of the allure of something like this is, like I say, it is a high capacity. It is a 16+1 capacity, so you have your 16 round magazine. Well, the only reason why that's a big deal is because a lot of these 22s, including some really nice ones, I have myself had to deal with just 10 round magazines. I've got a really nice 1911 22, and of course it's a nice metal, good quality magazine, but you are in a single stack 10 round configuration. Now there are some other people who are doing large capacities, like this is from a FN502, and of course this is a 15 rounder, so you've got more room in this. But I'm glad to see that Taurus has got a 16 round magazine, because I mean, if I'm going to shoot 22, typically I'm either, shooting for practice, plinking, just general, fun, working on your fundamentals, and it's nice to be able to put enough rounds in a magazine there. You're not having to constantly reload and change magazines, so that's kind of nice. So if you look at it overall, it's got a pretty good design, ergonomics, and features for a 22 and for any handgun as far as that goes. So when I think about 22 long rifle, I immediately think about plinking, target shooting. Not that 22 long rifle can't be used for defense, because it can, and I've actually carried 22 long rifle before as a carry gun, and have been perfectly happy with that. But a gun like this, for me, mainly because of the size, and what I mean by that is, we talked in the beginning about how much, close it is to like a Glock 19 in size. And, yes, this is 16+1 capacity, but if I'm going to carry 16+1 capacity of 22, I can just as easily carry 15+1 capacity of 9mm. And from a capability standpoint, I would probably feel a little better with the 9mm than the 22 as a defensive handgun. Now, once again, it doesn't have to be that way. That's just my preference. But let's talk about how well this firearm actually performs, since it is, to me, a good practice gun. So, lots of different ammo. I try to really get a variety on this, but so got the Remington, the Golden Bullet here. I've got the Federal Target. I'm going to tell you about this one here in a second. CCI, this is the segmented subsonic. This was really a fun round to shoot through a suppressor. And then, of course, the CCI Mini Mag, which is a great round. I don't think I shoot any 22 without using the CCI. And I also like the fact that CCI has really worked hard to keep up during these times when it's hard to get ammo. This is one I can still find on the shelf pretty regularly. And while everyone's raised their prices, some people haven't raised them out of reach, and CCI, to me, seems to be one of them, so I appreciate that. Now, on this particular type of ammo, I'll caution you, depends on the firearm. I have had some problems with the slide, not always recycling when I'm using this particular Federal ammo here, this 40 grain Federal Premium. I'll get a few rounds shot, and then it won't cycle the slide. And of course, I have to manually cycle the slide to get it to finish. So, not my first choice. Aside from the fact that we'd have an occasional round to do that, obviously all the rounds that fired were good. The Remington, the Golden Bullet, no problems whatsoever. I shot these all day with lots of fun, no problem. Same thing with both of the CCIs, both the Segment and the Mini Mag. Really good performing, no problems there. Now, as far as how this thing shoots, let me show you we're clear again real quick. There we go. So, you know, when I pick up a pistol like this, when you're looking at a more budget-friendly pistol, I don't really expect it to have a really good trigger, but this one, you get a little bit of mechanical, space here before the trigger engages, and once it does, you get just a little bit of take up, and then you can feel the pressure a little bit, nice crisp break, and look at the reset. It's pretty good. I'm going to come in again, nice crisp break there, reset. It's got a pretty short trigger reset, and the trigger, it feels pretty good for a budget-friendly gun. I think they did a great job with the trigger on this. I was actually really surprised. So that good trigger, that consistent trigger with that small, very light reset there makes for a really fun shooting gun, and it's really good follow-up shots. So it's a lot of fun, like I said. My biggest concern when I talk about a 22 for either carry gun or practice or whatever, it's not so much the reliability of the gun, it's the reliability of the ammunition. Because, rimfire ammunition, if you have problems with the way it's, stacked in the magazine, if something goes wrong in there and your ammunition doesn't feed right, or if the ammo itself is unreliable, that's the only thing I worry about when I carry 22, because over the years, it's one of the few calibers of ammos that I've carried that I've had just strange, bad rounds that didn't fire, or problems with feeding because, they're adapting a rimfire ammo into a, semi-auto magazine type, and they're staggered, and obviously sometimes that's going to mean problems. But for the TX22, it worked really well with all of the ammunition types that we ran through it, and I feel like that it did an exceptional job, very reliable, no problems whatsoever. So what's it like to carry the Taurus TX22 as a carry gun? Well, one of the advantages of this design, the way it's made, it's extremely light. Even by the time you add 16 rounds of 22 long rifle to this pistol, it is still extremely light. It's the empty weight is a little over 17 ounces, which is really, really nice. Now, I didn't have a holster that was custom fit for the TX22, and since it is a lighter pistol, I wanted to see how it did with the sticky holster. And there are those people who are totally anti-sticky, and if that's you, I get it. but I tend to only use stickies either for pocket carry or for very small, light firearms. So I decided to give it a try. So, really good fit, and I felt like that it was almost made for it. I've got every sticky holster that they have ever made, I think. Anyway, this is the LG6S that I used for the purpose of this experiment. And I like it because when it's fully inserted, you may have noticed, it's right at the rear sight. Trigger guard's covered very well. And so if you put this in the waistband, you have just a little part of the grip there sticking out. Depending on how much cant that you put in the waistband, whether you straight up and down or you tilt it a little bit, it's really comfortable against the body. I didn't have any trouble carrying this. Now, once again, I will carry, guns like the Glock 19 in a holster like this too. It's not my preferred method of carry for a heavier gun. For something like this, I'm definitely going to be in a retention holster, something with probably like a crossbreed Super Tuck or a Cloak Tuck Alienware, something that has Kydex and a couple of clips on the belt. But I've done this with a sticky holster before, and it's worked just fine. As light as this firearm is, fully loaded, I didn't even feel like that it was any pressure from my belt to keep it in place. They work, to me, as long as the firearm, is light. These work really well. They work as advertised, and that's why I tend to use them for certain things. And like I said, there's lots of great options out there. You can get a good Kydex retention holster. You can just get a good leather holster, anything that makes you happy. But it's very comfortable, as light as the firearm is, over the course of several days carry. Getting it out of vehicles. One thing I like about the sticky is because if I'm moving from place to place and I need to make adjustments in the waistline, I can do that instantly just by pushing the holster back and forth. So it was extremely comfortable to carry. You don't forget that it's there because obviously you always have situational awareness of what you're carrying, but it's so comfortable that you don't constantly worry about it in the waistband. So I thought it was nice. So let's talk about the overall impressions of the TX22 by Taurus. Well, overall, I think it's a really well-made firearm. Taurus, over the last few years, I've seen them putting out, better and better quality firearms. If you've followed Taurus over the years, there's, at least for me, there's been some disappointments in the past as far as some of the designs and the quality. And I really didn't look at Taurus seriously because of some of those problems. But we've had some firearms that have been coming out lately that I think have really made a big difference. And I've reviewed several of these already in the last year or so on the channel. And I think the TX22 falls in that category. The ergonomics on this firearm are great. I know there's a lot of gun snobs that won't even consider picking up something like a Taurus TX22, and that's fine. People are free to like what they want to. But I don't think that a reasonable person could pick up this firearm and feel the grip and tell me that it's not a very ergonomic and very comfortable handgun. It is what it is. And it's a really good design. It's got a great trigger. You've got an accessory rail. You've got an adjustable rear sight. It's a really nice little setup. And once again, Taurus offers several variants here. You can get different colors. You can get more of a competition setup with a longer barrel. You can get optics ready. But for the purpose of this review, I decided to keep it simple. Manual safety and just the basic feature set on the firearm. And having said that, I think it would be a good firearm for lots of different purposes. If it's training and practice, if you just like to plink, all that is good. If you want to carry it as a defensive firearm, you certainly can. 16 plus 1 is plenty of ammunition. 17 rounds is plenty to defend yourself with. The one thing I always have people consider, for me anyway, with the size of the firearm, if I'm going to carry something that's this big, that compares with, say, the Glock 19, if I can carry that much firearm, for me, I might end up just carrying something like the Glock 19 just because the 9mm cartridge, I feel like, is probably a better defensive round than a 22 long rifle round, given the fact that these factors of size are even. Now, having said that, I know a lot of people that carry 22 long rifle as their defensive round and are perfectly happy with it. And if that's you, then this would be a really good option for you. And of course, this would also make a good, gun to put inside a bag or a purse. And the other consideration is that for some people, the amount of energy in the firearm sometimes can be intimidating. So another positive that might make you think about this would be if you're the kind of person that has trouble handling a more powerful firearm. 9mm is generally pretty forgiving and pretty easy to shoot, but if you do have dexterity problems, or if you have hand strength limitations, or if you just feel like you're uncomfortable with a more powerful round, the TX22 gives you a lot of capacity, and of course you're not going to have near the recoil energy and going back into your hand. So it's a good option for someone who wants a less aggressive amount of energy from the firearm, but they still want something to defend themselves with. And it could be a good nightstand gun as well, depending on what you're comfortable with. So, overall, I think it's a good firearm. To me, with the size, I'd probably do something different as far as carry. But it's a great handgun, definitely great for practice, and definitely a lot of fun. And it's definitely very well made. So, if you've been thinking about the TX22 and you're just wondering about it, well, there's no need to, because it's a great firearm. All right. Well, that is going to do it for today. We appreciate you being with us as always. We'll be back very soon with another video for you. And as always, until that time, everyone be safe and have a great day. Thank you very much.